Hello everyone, in this video I'm gonna show you how to remove a woven bracelet from a loom and how to attach tube clasps to the bracelet. To do this, we'll need scissors, matches for melting threads and the clasps themselves. There will be a lobster claw from one side and the chain from another one to adjust the length. To put the clasps on the bracelet, we're going to slide the clasps over the last rows. So let's start. Take the thread which we weave the bracelet with and check if it is tightened to the first thread of the warp. And cut the first warp threads with scissors closer to the place where the threads are attached. I put aside the thread of which we woven and the first thread of the warp. We are taking the second thread of the warp and the third. We tie them together. To do this, we put the second thread perpendicularly to the top of the third thread. Thread the tail of the second thread from bottom to the top into the formed triangle and tighten the knot. We repeat our actions. There should be 2 knots and now we put the threads aside. Then we're going to cut off the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th warp threads. And we tie 2 of the same knots between the 4th and the 5th threads. We put them aside. We repeat the steps with the 6th and 7th strings. We need 2 knots and continue doing the steps, gradually cutting off the warped threads. We cut off the 2 warp threads. We tie the 10th and the 11th threads into 2 knots together. Now, tied together 10th and 11th, we tie to the 12th on 2 knots. And so, all the warp threads are tightened together. Now we're going to tie them again using the previous knots of 2 threads. Take the first knot with the thread in the first warp thread and the second knot, second and third warp threads and tie them with a triangle knot. Now we're making a second knot. Make sure you tie them well. Now we're taking next 2 knots of 2 threads and tie them together twice. We are taking the remaining 2 knots, 2 and 3, and tie them together in 2 knots. Now we have 3 big knots. We cut all the threads at the distance. Do it carefully, try not to let our knots unravel. This is what your bracelet should look like at this stage. Next, we light one match and bring it burning to the tails of the thread from below. Hold it at a small distance and let the fire melt the ends of the thread. Try not to burn the threads. You can turn the bracelet upside down for your comfort. We are repeating it several times until the threads are short as in the video. While the threads are still hot and soft, pin them together with your fingers. Be careful, try not to get burnt. Next, we take one part of the fastener and put it on the last row of the beads together with the knots. We help ourselves with scissors. Push the beads inside the clasp. Make sure the last row of beads is inside the clasp. Close the clasp cover. You can close it on the hard surface with your fingers or pliers. Now we should trim the clasp so that it is in the middle. We're almost done. We've made a fastening on one side of the bracelet. Let's move on to another side of the bracelet. Now we have to repeat the same procedure from another side, but there is a couple of changes, so here they are. First, we need to cut all of the threads. We're doing it near the place where the bracelet is attached to the loom. So now we have completely removed the bracelet from the loom. To make the process tying the knots easier, we need to put the bracelet under the loom. We are repeating the action with tying knots again. And we tie the first and the second warp threads with 2 knots. We repeat the same actions on all the threads of the warp except for the last knot. Here we tie 11th thread of the warp with the 12th thread and the thread that we were weaving. So next we tie the knots 2 by 2. At the end you should end up with 3 knots. Cut the threads at the same distance from the bracelet. Next we light one match and bring the fire to the ends of the threads. We keep at short distance and let the fire melt the ends of the thread. We try to set fire to the threads. If your threads are accidentally set on fire, do not panic. You can extinguish them quickly by blowing on them. The threads will darken, but this won't be visible under the fastener. As soon as the threads are as short as in the video, we fasten them with our fingers together. Now we got the soldered knots. Next, we take the second part of the fastener and put it on the last row of beads together with the knots. We help ourselves with scissors, push the beads inside the clasps and close the clasp cover. Here is the clasp we got. We fasten the hook on the chain at a convenient distance to grip your hand. This is how the length is regulated. The side of the bracelet looks very neat. The finished bracelet will be a very bright addition to your look. If you succeed, then you're great. And if something did not work out, that's also alright. Try to watch those moments in the video one more time. Over time, you'll gain an experience and you'll definitely succeed. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Write comments what you liked the most or something was not clear. I will be glad to answer and read your reviews. Weaving kits, materials, fasteners can be purchased at the link in the description. Goodbye to everyone and have a nice day.